Hello, my name is Claudia Tornquist. I'm the president and CEO of Kodiak Copper. Kodiak is a copper porphyry exploration company. It was founded and is chaired by Chris Taylor of Great Bear fame. Our most important main project is a project called MPD in southern British Columbia, where we made a discovery in 2020 and have since been very successful in expanding on this discovery. And this year we have a big 25,000 meter drill program ongoing, which will be very exciting and will be on many different targets.
Claudia, good to see you again. Saw you back in March. Obviously, you've been up to a lot since we saw you, but maybe recap on what you came out of the drill bit through 2022, because I suspect it's going to inform the conversation we're going to have about 2023 drill programs and targets.
Yes, well, we had a big drill program last year. In total, drilled 26,000 meters. The majority of this drilling was on the gate zone, where we made our first discovery. And we've now extended the gate zone to 1 kilometer in length, 350 meters across, 900 meters down. So it's quite a sizable high-grade porphyry center that we've discovered. And this year, we will also execute a large drill program, 25,000 meters. And this year is all about testing other targets. So it will be a very different drill program from previous years, and that will take the model that led to the discovery success at Gate and test several other porphyry centers.
Right, okay, so lots of targets to go after, and you're trying to make another discovery, but you've kind of got to manage the way that you manage the drill bit in the district. You've got a big district that you're going after. What are you trying to do in the district? Because we've seen, some massive intercepts, but a sort of lower grade copper equivalent numbers at that. Are you chasing higher grade, or are you just chasing more of the same?
Well, what we have at MPD is a multi-centric porphyry system. There has been a lot of historic drilling before we got the project, and when we looked at those results, we saw a big footprint. There was copper and gold drill proven near surface over a total of 14 square kilometers. So we knew from the start we have a big system on our hands, and it's an alkaline porphyry system, which typically has clusters of porphyry centers that occur together. And we started testing in, it was 2019, our main drill program. And then we're fortunate to hit with the gate zone a nice high-grade porphyry center that has grades that are significantly higher than the grades that are mined in the area. And over the last 2 years of drilling, we have now shown the gate zone to be quite sizable. So very happy where we got to with that. And yeah, as I said, this year will be a very exciting year because it's about discovering the next and the next and the next gate zone.
Okay, so let's just stay on the grade thing a little bit longer, because I think there were lots of inbound about what grades are mineable. So when you talk about a high grade porphyry center, what grades are you talking about? Either copper or copper equivalent numbers?
Well, we don't have a resource yet, so we only have a whole lot of drill intercepts. And they are on average long intercepts, anywhere from 400 meters up to 700 and more meters. And our best intercept was 0.76% copper equivalent over half a kilometer. Then the lower end, lower grade intercepts would maybe be 0.28 or 0.3% copper equivalent over long intercept, and then in between always much higher grade shorter sections in the middle. And anyway, in between we've got lots of 0.4, 0.5% long copper equivalent long over 700 meters. And so altogether, it looks the gate zone is a nice, large, high-grade porphyry center, which is what typically you see in a porphyry. You have high-grade centers and then large volumes of lower-grade mineralization around it. And those high-grade centers are often very important for economics. And clearly that seems what we have found at the gate zone, a nice high-grade porphyry center. So start, and now it's about demonstrating scale and finding more of those.
Definitely get that. But again, I'm going to stick with the great thing about it. So you mentioned the fact that there are copper mines in the district which have, is it equivalent, higher, lower grades than you? What encourages you to believe that the kind of grades that your drills are, showing up at the moment? I appreciate it's pre-resource. I appreciate it's pre any kind of study on this for 3101 or otherwise. But what are they mining?
Well, we have Copper Mountain next door, which is a operating copper mine with a quite similar geology. And their reserve grade is 0.23% copper and 0.1 gram gold. And the cutoff is, I believe, 0.12% copper. So that gives us a good yardstick of what we need to achieve to have economic potential. And yeah, the gate zone compares very well to those grades. And what's always important to keep in mind also is that we are in a very low-cost area. We are in an established mining district in southern British Columbia, where there is quite warm weather and where there is just all infrastructure there, very good accessibility. And that just makes for very low-cost operation now when we're exploring, and will also be a big advantage when it comes to building and operating a mine. And the grades you need to make an economic mine in the area where we are significantly lower than if you compare to, say, for example, the Andes or the Arctic North, where you find many other porphyry deposits or mines.
Right, okay. And you talk about, going after these targets, and we should maybe talk about these in a second, but again, I'm intrigued by the kind of conversations you have internally and how it informs where you go to drill and what your end game is, because we've seen a market with hugely inflated capital costs for companies trying to build mills, plants, etc. Are you conscious that you need to kind of really kind of rack the scale of this thing up for it to become a kind of, I guess, engineering exercise or earth moving exercise, given the grades that you're seeing and given what you see else with other miners in the district?
Well, we acquired MPT because we thought it has the potential to be big. That was always what attracted us to the project. It has a massive big footprint that was demonstrated by historic drilling. The project had 50,000 meters of drilling over decades before we got it. And we acquired it because we thought it is big. I think that's also why Tech invested and became our largest shareholder. They are a big company. They're not interested in small projects. So in our minds, exploration at NPD was always about size and scale. We started out at the gate zone. We're fortunate there and made a nice high-grade discovery. Now, over the last 2 years, spent almost 50,000 meters of drilling and showed how big the gate zone is and then drilled it out. And so this year is a year where it's back to discovery, and we'll take the same model that worked at the gate zone, where we drilled essentially below historic shallow mineralization and discovered higher grade, and we'll do exactly the same at 4 or 5 other targets.
Right, okay. Now, you've just gone and raised, you announced, I think, back in April, so since I spoke to you, announced $8.4 million raise, putting you $12-13 million bucks in the treasury. How have you allocated it in terms of these targets? How have you prioritized the targets? How have you decided on a drill program or model that whole drilling exercise that you're going to be going through?
So we're aiming to drill 4 or 5 targets. How exactly we allocate will be guided by what we see in our drilling. And we started drilling in April and had an update out recently. So our first 2,500 meters of drilling were at the west target in the southern part of our property. We then have other priority targets, all of which are formerly drilled targets, and they include other targets in the southern part of the property, like South, Added, and 1516, and then one in the northern part of the property called Man. So, about 4 to 5 targets will be tested this year. with the aim to discover the next high-grade center.
Fantastic. And what is that? Is it kind of shallow drilling, deep drilling? Because you've done some pretty deep drilling so far. How do you hope to? I guess is it a cookie cutter approach, same as you did at with your first project, MPD?
Yeah. Well, the length of our drill holes, we aim typically for between 700 to 800 meters. So we test deeper than the historic shallow drilling, which mostly was less than 200 meters. So we go down to 700-800 meters on average. And that's what we'll continue to be doing at all our targets. And then we'll be guided by what we see. And at the West target, we've already in last week's update announced that we saw porphyry mineralization below the historic mineralization in all of those holes. We drilled one down to 820 meters. That was the longest hole, and that was mineralized, ended in mineralization. So we're seeing all the right things, and I'm excited for the results, which will be available in July.
Okay, soon. Okay, not long. Well, next week. It's not soon.
Well, I don't think on the 1st of July, but they'll come out in the course of July.
Oh, fantastic. That's good news. Good news. Now, here's a question sort of more generally. I was just come back from a couple of conferences, and this was a topic of conversation for advanced developers and producers. They're saying that ESG is still a kind of big consideration, and they're seeing it in the US. Perhaps some of the issues falling away around the kind of permitting, licensing, red tape that we've seen, and they're trying to make it a better place for miners to actually operate. Obviously you've got the Mojave project, and obviously Canada has got lots of initiatives around ESG. Are you seeing that environment changing for the better? Is it the same? Is it worse? I mean, how is it in the exploration world on ESG?
I think expectations are changing, and people, investors, the market expects exploration and mining companies to operate in a responsible way, much more so than that was in 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And it's really, in my mind, very much of a business decision to make sure we have all our environmental programs, the consultations and communications with local stakeholders, with First Nations, with tribes. We do all of that well, because it's really about de-risking a project. In the olden days, there were companies who invested millions and millions only to then run into opposition. And exactly those risks is what you mitigate if you just sit down with your local stakeholders, with the First Nations. You talk early, make sure there is no opposition, make sure you have all your environmental programs done well, and then you move ahead.
It's so interesting times for copper. I think the expectation is that supply demand will start widening again in 25, 2026. As I mentioned earlier, the price is moving up towards that $4 magical mark again. What are you seeing out there in the copper market? When you attend these kind of conferences, are you seeing people moving further and further upstream, as it were? We're seeing battery manufacturers, car manufacturers, kind of moving upstream into developers or advanced. Producers or advanced developers. Are you seeing any kind of inquiries as an explorer? I mean, I know you're pre-resource and pre-economic study, but I'm sort of intrigued to see how far these guys have got their fingers in all the pies at the moment.
What I can certainly tell from first-hand experience is that all the big copper companies are looking for good projects. And there's also a lot of M&A activity going on. I mean, there's been a number of big copper transactions, whether it's BHP and Oz Minerals, whether it's our neighbors, Hudbay and Copper Mountain, or First Quantum just got an approach from Barrick, and a number of others. There's a lot of activity in the sector, and I think that just reflects that companies are really looking for good projects. And it's the long-term picture for copper that is really quite compelling. And there haven't been any big discoveries in the last 10 years. So big, good projects are needed to build all these electric cars and solar and wind energy installations to make the future green.
Future is green for sure, and the future looks good for copper. Claudia, thank you very much for your update. I will be looking out for those results in July, whenever they come. Hopefully more of the same, right?
Thank you.